So why would I want to pay so much or want to own an overpriced 3 Series? Performance, reliability, fun, cost of ownership? Maybe all of the above. Alright guys, so welcome back to Weekend Car Guy. So today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Thought I would give you guys a review of what it's like to own a BMW M3. So right now we're sitting inside my 2018 BMW M3. This is not the one with the competition package, but it does have a few upgrades here and there. Obviously you guys can see the Apple CarPlay is already loaded. We're waiting for the vehicle to actually warm up to reach operating temperature. So obviously it's a cold start. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna lower the window just a little bit so you guys can hear how the exhaust actually sounds. You know, when you're doing the cold start on it. It's not necessarily super loud. You know, it's very manageable. It's bearable. It's nothing extremely loud. You know, a lot of exhausts sometimes they just drone inside the vehicle, as you can hear. So it's actually pretty decent inside here. So we're gonna take it out for a spin, and we'll drive around. And I'll talk a little bit about the car. All right, let's do this. It's a bit of a tight garage, but it does the job. All right. So we'll start off first with doing a quick review of the inside of the vehicle. And as you can see, very traditional BMW feel to it, you know, from the steering wheel, from the dash, from the controls. You know, with the new iDrive 6, they did a few upgrades, so the interface changed a little bit, but in essence it's very standard, very traditional feel to the whole dashboard, the buttons, radio controls, AC controls and whatnot. The difference that they did do for this year though is they actually added a touchscreen, so you can basically change the layout however you see fit. At the same time, you can go ahead and control the vehicle itself, you know, most of the settings through the screen, and you still have your traditional iDrive control on the side. All right, so let's see what else can I tell you guys about the car itself. This one comes with your traditional M wheel, you know, M stitching, paddle shifters, and then you have your M1 and your M2. Basically, what your M1 and M2 do for you, it's you're able to pre-program the settings as far as whether you want to drive the engine efficiently, sport, you know, suspension, if you want to do standard suspension, sports plus, then also for the steering feel. Again, and it's up to you however you want to manage that combination. For the most part, right now I have it by default on efficient. Basically, it's efficient on the revving, sport suspension, and then sport steering wheel. At the same time, you're able to control your shifting points. If you want it to be more aggressive, do you want it to prolong, do you want it to shift faster, or whatnot. So my M1, I have it programmed to sports, and comfort for the steering wheel. And then for the M2, I have it as sports plus, and then sport for the steering wheel. Car completely changes whenever you select each one of those modes. But we're gonna go ahead and go for a drive so I can give you guys a bit of a feel of what that actually looks like. All right, so let's take it out for a spin. So right now we're driving on efficient, so very subtle, very comfortable type of ride. And again, I mean, the M3, look, it's one of those cars that, you know, can you live with? Definitely. If you like a 3 Series, this is basically the same thing as that. Beautiful part about the M3 is that it was actually designed to be a race car, to be drivable in the streets, versus most other manufacturers that tend to do the opposite, right? They build a street car and they try to convert it and upgrade to make it trackable. So from that perspective, right, it's a totally different mindset, totally different build. This car, again, very composed, very comfortable. Take it on road trips. I'll give you guys a quick look later on in terms of the inside. As a matter of fact, I have 2 car seats in the back. Again, it could be your family car. It has a decent sized trunk. Very comfortable, right? Whenever you have it on efficient or just comfort mode. So from that perspective, look, again, a car that you can definitely live with every day. Not something that, some of the sports cars that you buy, that you either in sports mode all the time or you just don't buy it at all. So from that perspective, this car definitely gives you a good balance of the two. Then again, I'm a little biased. That being said, the car does have a few flaws, right? Because nothing is perfect. Some things are too good to be true, right? There's a few features, from the comfort perspective, the luxury perspective that are missing. The seats are comfortable, right? You can definitely, take a nice little road trip, maybe 2-3 hours max. But anything beyond that, you are going to feel the difference. You're going to want to take a break. You're going to feel it. So I opted for getting the cloth, the carbon cloth option on this one. Only reason being is, did a quick, some reading, some reviews in regards to that option and why would even BMW offer it. Main reason is actually the bolsters. So if you're driving Spiritly, this seats will actually hold you a little bit better. You're not sliding on the leather like you would do on the other option. But then again, it's also a personal preference. Again, quite comfortable. I think it does the job, quite well. So I'm going to open it up a little bit here. I'm going to put it on 1. So it definitely wakes up the car a little bit. You do feel the difference when you go ahead and do that. Revs a lot quicker, right? Your suspension, your steering, you feel everything change. And again, that's based on my settings. If you go on M2 and M2, it's definitely very, very aggressive. Everything changes. Going back to the pros and the cons, right, about the car itself, I think I'm going to start off with just going with the pros on the vehicle, because ultimately you're here to see why somebody spends so much money rather than buying an M3. My first suggestion, obviously, is if you can buy a pre-owned with very low mileage, definitely do that. Sorry, so there's some speed bumps going on through here, which you definitely feel. So obviously, I'm going to add that as a con, in the sense of the suspension is so stiff that you actually do feel every little cranny on the road. That being said, right, going back to the reasons of why is it that you want to buy a car like this. First of all, again, let's look at the practicality, portion of it. Even though most people do not buy a sports car to be practical, but the fact is that you do have a full-size trunk. Apart from having a full-size trunk, it's a 4-seater. Again, I have 2 car seats in the back, no issues there. Seats are actually quite comfortable. I'm not a small guy by any means, and even with the sports seats, I feel very comfortable in here. So from that perspective, again, very good option as far as buying a sports car. It's still comfortable, still practical, right? You can still, go get the groceries or go to the track within the same day without necessarily having to do a bunch of changes to the car, other than just pressing a few buttons, changing the configuration, and you're ready to go. So again, from that perspective, the car it's a great balance with money.
The M3 comes with a 6-cylinder twin-turbo, 425 horsepower, 406 foot-pounds of torque. The car revs up to 7,600 RPM. It's alarmingly fast. The DCT transmission is amazing. This is actually the same transmission that comes in the M5. There's so much engineering that went into it. The lead engineer wanted to develop a car that, even though it was turbo, would feel as naturally aspirated as possible.
Alright, so I know there's always also the concern around cost of ownership, right, of an M3 and M car in general. But for the most part, these cars they're bulletproof, right? As long as you give them the right maintenance, you stay on top of them the way you're supposed to. Like most luxury cars or performance cars, right? I mean, ultimately, they expect for you to give them a beating. So as long as you're giving it the right maintenance, you shouldn't really have any issues with it. For the most part, this platform, especially in the 2018, right, really started back in 2015. So, when you look at the track record from 15 till now, there's very little issues. I know a lot of people, right, they look into the whole crank hub issues, right, and everybody gets concerned around the fact that, what if I spin the crank hub, I'm going to have issues with that, I'm going to destroy the engine. you know, etc. The reality is, unless you're doing some modding to it, you're boosting more than normal, you shouldn't really have any issues with that. I mean, the car itself came tuned from the factory to take on what it needs to take on.
As you will see, there's plenty of carbon fiber all around, very tastefully done for the right reasons. It's all about weight savings. As a matter of fact, the trunk is CRP, carbon reinforced plastic. The roof is also CRP.
Carbon speakers. And again, the quality of the sound is actually amazing. And again, I mean, once you go up on the luxury lines, you can get different options. Again, for the size of this car, I think the Harman Kardon does a fantastic job. You don't have to go crazy, you know, with something more expensive, heavier, if you want to call it that. Ultimately, this does the job fantastically. All right. As you will notice, this one does not have a sunroof. There is an option for you to get a sunroof. For the most part, that's usually a special order. Most people who drive they don't really care much for that, but again, it's not. It's an option that's there if you really want it. That is something that I think you can add to the cons list, right? Is the amount of storage space that you have. The compartment is actually not that big. When you look at it, you have 2 cup holders, and then you have these little pockets on the door. You can basically put a bottle of water there, and then just like a little, I guess, nook in there to put some stuff on. Then your center console itself is, again, not that big. And you actually do lose space if you get the wireless charging option, which I have here. But basically it takes over the entire space. So when I put my phone on there, that's pretty. Alright, let's see what else. Bluetooth standard. Again, that was something that back in the day BMW would actually charge you additional for, which I always found it ridiculous. The fact that you actually have to pay for Bluetooth. Most manufacturers were giving you that as an option for free. Along with that, we also have Apple CarPlay. So you can notice here, you do have Apple CarPlay that's included in it. And again, you know, like I just showed you right now, this is a touchscreen, which is actually pretty cool. It's one of the new options that they put for 2018 on the M3. So older BMWs actually already had it, but again on the M3 they had not put it on there. Like I mentioned to you guys, these are my kids' car seats. Again, for the size of the car, it's actually pretty comfortable, pretty practical, right? I'm gonna give you guys a quick tour of the outside. So this is something that annoys crap out of me, actually, the fact that you see here, this is where your comfort access would be. And it only has it on the front doors. The rear doors, it is not an option. I don't know if it's a 3 Series thing, but actually on my X4 M40i, that was also an issue. Did not have that. So this is basically the car itself. Comes standard with 19-inch wheels. You do have the option for on the competition package for the 20-inch wheels. Quite honestly, I don't think I would want to go 20 inches on this car. You know, they look great, they look fantastic, but at the same time, you also feel all the bumps, you feel everything down on the road. So I don't know. I know that's an option that I would want.
For the F80, BMW was the generation where BMW was looking to turn the page on some of the negative quality issues they had seen in the past. The F80 became a bit of a flagship to turn this around. The lead engineer at BMW wanted to address all the reliability issues that they had seen in the past. He focused on better longevity, reliability. The cooling was addressed on the turbo. Cooling was addressed in terms of the engine. He wanted to make the car more efficient. The thought process was more of a long-term thought into it versus something that's disposable. For lack of a better term, he needed it to be bump-proof. The turbos were upgraded, cooling was upgraded, internals are lightweight and forged. Is owning a BMW worth it? Certainly. Is owning an M3 worth it? Absolutely.